Hey, welcome to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, Alan Bishop. Hey, this channel is all about home distilling and legal distilling. If you've got questions, reach out to us in the comments below, social media, or via bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out thealchemistcabinet.com.
Hey guys, just time for a little talking head video or two here this afternoon, and man, I feel like I've been on a roll with the videos lately, and you guys have been really supportive, and I really appreciate it. And as just a quick update, don't forget that if you're at all into the spooky, the paranormal, high strangeness, spirituality, religion, all that stuff, if you have ghosts, you have everything, is in the new season. We're also doing spooky season as we go. I'm a little behind on that. I'm getting ready to record a bunch of those this weekend and get them out over the next few days up until Halloween. Kim just recorded a new one last night. I set that one out because I've been doing so much exposition work on the spooky season stuff that I just needed a break from it. But bicycle riding's going well. I actually have another bicycle in reserve I'm waiting on some tires for. I like having 3 or 4 different bikes that I can switch out with a little bit different gearing. Makes me work a little differently, work a little harder, work some muscles I'm not used to working. It has nothing to do with the art of distillation, other than the fact that I've come to the conclusion that it has helped me tremendously in the art of distillation and the art of all things that I want to do. And I feel the same way about my guitar playing. I like to have 3 or 4 different guitars with different configurations, different pickups and stuff for the same reason. It just makes you think a little differently. The Practical Alchemist and Distiller's Almanac 2026 should be here within the next week or so. We'll go up for order at thealchemistcabinet.com where you guys can get it, and we'll autograph it and send it out to you. So extremely happy and proud to actually have that thing out before the beginning of the new year. And next year, hopefully we'll get it out even a little earlier now that we've got a little bit of a hang of what the hell we're doing. I think. I hope. There's always the US mail system or UPS or FedEx to mess that up for everybody. But we'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Anyways, let's get into some of your questions here. So, hey Alan, this is from Bobby. Let me first say a big thank you for what you're doing for the home distilling community. You're very welcome, man. Your videos are exciting as you share your experience and insights with all of us. Just wanted to reach out to you and share what I've been doing lately and ask for any advice which might come to you. Basically, I go for a white spirit, and my aim being to get the best quality spirit out of our still. I do not want to mess with a barrel at this point, as I like the results as is. So here's how I do rakia, the way that we call brandy in the Balkans. I've been working with Muscat Ottonelle grapes for the past 5 years now. It's a very aromatic white variety, typically with around 20-22 bricks, pH 3.4. I try to experiment each year across the process, fermentation on/off the seeds, different yeast, racking before distillation, and with different distillation techniques, single pass and redistillation of tails, double pass with recycling the tails in the spirit or the strip. As I have already recycled 2 or 3 times and have no tails now, I plan to gather them and go for a queen's cut the next time to check the results. So what I did this year, the grapes were picked, crushed, and pressed in the next 24 hours. The extracted juice/must I put inside at a constant temp of 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. The pomace I used for a second wine, but this is another story. Pitch the yeast and it ferments to dry in around 10 to 12 days. I distill on day 20, leaving myself a week just in case to book a public still and so on. This year I siphoned the juice and was surprised how much sediment was left. On a fermenter having like 110 to 120 liters, there was around 15 liters. This I put in the second wine. Distillation is on a copper alembic with line arm at a 45-degree angle towards the condenser, and it is a shell and tube one. I do a strip hard and fast. It starts coming out around 135 to 140. I collect down to around 20. I usually end up with like a fourth of the still charge and volume, and my low wines are around 80. Obtention temperature was 18 degrees Celsius. Spirit run, I got like 60% of the boiler in volume. Collected down to 30, average proof 136. I started at like 170, discarded 1%, average 154 proof. As 4/heads and another 1% late heads, average 162 proof. To be recycled, the next 40% cut at 120 hearts, average 154 proof, and 15% cut at 30 tails, average 86 proof. Man, great details here, and I love that you have a public still that you can work at. I wish the culture in the United States had held on to all of that traditional stuff. Not just that, but folklore and superstition and all that stuff. And it's why we're confused as a society, because we don't have that. But that's another story. So ironically, I have a history with Muscat Alexander. That was one of the main grapes that we distilled at Copper and Kings. Very beautiful, very aromatic, very perfumey, very strong grape. Probably my favorite one to distill with. We even made absinthe out of it, and I love that absinthe as well. So it sounds to me like you're doing everything you need to do. My personal take on it, my personal preference, not so different from what you do. So for white spirit, I'm a little more cautious when I make white spirit than I am brown spirit, right? So let me give you the protocols for brown spirit that I would use, and then I'll comment a little bit more on the white. So with brown spirit, with the grape harvest, I would be harvesting a little bit underripe. I would press, probably remove seeds and skin, although I don't mind the seed. Well, actually not even the skin, because it's a white grape. I don't mind the seeds or the skin in a white grape fermentation to pull some phenolics. Just depends on what equipment you have on hand at the time that you can use. I would probably, for brown spirit, let that ferment of its own accord for about 24 hours of natural yeast, and then I would pitch something like EC 1118, Pradal de Mousse, that sort of thing, and let it finish out just because. And I might even let it run on the wild yeast for brown spirit. From there, I would always double pot distill it. I would probably be cutting from heads to hearts. Typically, we'd start running about 168 or so. I'd probably be cutting hearts about 158, somewhere in there. That would be at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. And then I'd probably be cutting the tails to go into a barrel somewhere around the 88 to 92 proof range. Now, with white spirit, I would prefer not to have the seeds. I would go ahead and pitch yeast immediately as soon as I was done pressing. Fermentation temperatures, preferably somewhere in that 65 degrees Fahrenheit range. Probably a 14 to 21 day fermentation. I would, for white spirit, rack off of the lees. But for brown spirit, this is what I forgot to mention a while ago. Always leave the lees in. The most highly prized cognacs, for example, are those that are run off the lees from the tank and have the yeast in them. They're just so much more phenolic, etc. But that would be for brown spirit, right? And I would also probably keep that last little bit of lees for its own separate run, so I could mark it separate from everything else and blend it later on after maturation. Tails I would recycle. I probably wouldn't recycle any heads into the white spirit. And honestly, tails, I would probably, instead of recycling back into the next doubling run, the next batch, I'd probably go ahead and do a queen's cut out of that, and maybe even mark it as separate, mature it of its own accord, and then use it as blending material. Well, not mature, you're not maturing it, I forgot. I might distill it of its own accord, set it aside, and use it to blend in or have it as its own unique product, right? Because sometimes those queen's cuts, the quality is just beautiful, and you don't want to lose that. This is an exciting email, and I really, really enjoy it. If I had my druthers, I would probably, whether it was a white spirit or a brown spirit, I'd probably use a worm condenser as opposed to a shell and tube condenser. But in the grand scheme of things, that's entirely up to, how clean your fermentation is, what still you have access to, and what your personal preference is. I like worms on brandies just because there is a little bit of a heavier sort of flavor characteristic comes across. There's not as much copper contact as there is in shell and tube condenser. But again, that's all personal preference stuff, man. I'm glad to have a brandy distiller send in some questions. I wish I would get more questions from brandy distillers. It's a highly undervalued spirit, in my opinion, especially for medicinal use and for base, for things like that. And in other news, the original distillery that I used to work at, so it was sold years ago to Constellation Brands. Constellation Brands just sold that to a new owner, and he has rebranded Copper and Kings 100%, and is doing some really, really, really cool stuff. So keep an eye out for Copper and Kings in the near future, especially their apple brandies that'll be coming out. They've got some exciting stuff going on. So let's go to the next question here. So let's see. Who's this from? So from Doug. Hey Alan, my wife and I were able to visit Old Homestead last Saturday. We bought every one of your flavored spirits. Man, thank you so much. Kelsey is a hoot. Yes, Kelsey Kendall is an absolute amazing person, one of my best friends in the world, and I love her to death, and she is fucking hilarious as well. So the girls also told me you and the owner had a little private tasting party of some bourbon you're aging. Can't wait for that to come out. I look forward to being able to take a tour next time we come. 4-hour drive for us. Thanks for all you do, and keep up the great work. Man, that's a pretty good drive, and thank you so much for buying the flavored stuff. I'm always a little weird about the flavored stuff unless it's within what we call the Black Forest category, like the peach liqueur or peach cordial, the 9-herb charm, that sort of stuff. Those are a little more traditional liqueurs. The sunshine flavored stuff, it's very heavily flavored. And I know people like that. I'm always a little, I guess because for years I didn't do any of that kind of stuff, it throws me for a loop that people are into it sometimes. I'm glad they are, don't get me wrong. It's paying the bills. It's paying the bills to do all the other cool stuff. So as far as that private tasting of the bourbon, Jolie and I, we have gotten into that bourbon a couple times with a couple of people. It is some bourbon and rye and single malt, made from my grains, my protocols, my yeast strain, up at Moondrops Distillery, just northeast of Indianapolis. Those guys did a fantastic job. The biggest difference between what we're making now and what they made is that they did theirs all a single pass on a pot with a 4-plate column, whereas we do a very small amount like that, and the rest we do double pot still or pot double thumper. So it will be in the same vein as exactly what we're making. Basically, the profile will be a little bit different just because of the method of distillation, the different distillery, different equipment, and all that stuff. But they did a fantastic job, and it is coming along. There's some that's 3 and 4 years old. I think there's some coming up on 5 years old. The stuff in 53-gallon barrels still needs a little bit more time, but the stuff that's in, let's see, there's some single malt and some used Garyana oak that actually came from, was used at Wood Hat Spirits, and that stuff's really special. It's smoked with alder and beechwood by Caleb up at Sugar Creek Malt. Really, really phenolic stuff, but really cool. I mean, it's going to be a specialty thing for people that really enjoy smoky single malts. The 25 and 30-gallon barrels, there's rye whiskey, rye malt whiskey, and 2 different bourbon mash bills in there. They're pretty much ready to go. The 53s probably need another year or so before we really know what they're going to do. The problem is in Indiana, to go into the tasting room, anything that we make has to be 60% ours from fermentation all the way through distillation. So we can blend and sell in the tasting room, but it can only be 40% stuff that we purchased elsewise. So right now what we're doing is we're getting the secondary license that we need, the federal license that we need to actually put that stuff into distribution. It will be the first Old Homestead stuff to go into distribution. I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to help pay some bills and take care of us on some things. So thanks for supporting me. I really appreciate that. Please keep it up. New distilleries need your help. Right now is a rough time. There's a lot of people going out of business, and they're going to continue to go out of business, and it sucks. And I hope that we're not one of them, because I'm not qualified to fucking do anything else in the world other than distill, write weird esoteric stuff, and record podcasts. So, let's see. I'm going to go ahead. This is going to be a long video. There's a couple more here. Let's see if we can get into them and get through them. Hey, love your one piece at a time education videos. I look forward to them every few days. This is from Adam, by the way. I had a question I was hoping to get your insight on. I currently work in the tech industry and have been reasonably successful. However, within the next few years, I have full intentions of doing a career change to open a small craft distillery. In pursuit of that, I'm interested in investing in value-added professional education. I want to make sure I'm pursuing education that has industry recognition as well as value-added practical training. I see advertisements for courses from Moonshine University and Civil Institute and wanted to get your opinion. Right now, money is no object, and I'm primarily interested in the best training regardless of costs. What are your thoughts? Oh, wow, that's a great question. So, and I'm going to preface this by saying I do not intend to offend any institutions out there. But I'm going to be honest with you. So, if I were you, I'd try to hook up with a distiller and learn from a distiller. I also would probably go ahead and start distilling at home very quietly. The best experience is practical experience. The problem with the Civil Institute and the problem with Moonshine University is that they know what they know. And what they know is very large industry. What they cater to is very large industry. Specifically, what I mean by this is, let's say you go to the Moonshine University. They're going to, in their 5-day practical course, you're going to focus more on business than you are on the art of distillation and the art of fermentation. All right, and you're either a business person or you're not a business person. So if you're a business person, you probably already know everything they're going to tell you. It's good for meeting people. And there are things I have learned from Moonshine University over the years. But on the practical side of things, what they're mostly going to teach you is going to be stuff gleaned from the old Seagram's books and stuff gleaned from Beam family notes. That is the Kentucky methodology that existed after Prohibition. It's going to be the exact same thing that they've told every other distiller that has ever come through that place. And they're going to recommend the exact same suppliers, the exact same equipment, the exact same yeast strains, the exact same mash bills, the exact same architects that they have told everyone else to use. It's It's part of what's gotten us in this situation with the bourbon glut as it is and craft distillery struggling. There's a lot of clone distilleries out there. When it comes to the Civil Institute and some of these other programs, I actually have the educational materials from a lot of those programs. And I can tell you that as a practical distiller, I can go through the vast majority of those books with a red marker and mark them up like a teacher. It might work in the great big places. It's not ideal for small distilleries in any way, shape, or form. I won't say that it's a waste of money to go to these places or be a part of these programs. Anything you can learn is always something more than you knew before. What I will tell you is that they are very dogmatic, very highly dogmatic. And because they're dogmatic and because they're in this in the way that they're in it, and because they want as few questions from you logically as possible over the years, I can't recommend them for those courses. Now, I will highly recommend Moonshine University when it comes to side courses like on botanicals and rum and single malt and things of that nature. I'll highly recommend them when it comes to sourcing flavorings through Flavor Man and that sort of stuff. But I can't recommend that 5-day course. Logically I can't, for the money they want for it and what they're going to teach you that's already readily available in a million other books that cost a whole lot less than that course does. I just can't do it. I would tell you, find a good craft distiller that's willing to open his doors to you and let you in to hang out. I would tell you that Amanda Bryant's teaching some classes, and I think she does some really interesting things, and she's probably worth talking to and visiting. As a matter of fact, I know she is. She's a very good, very competent distiller. I've worked alongside her at Mount Vernon, and I like her a lot, and she's doing some really cool stuff, especially on the small scale, some creative stuff. She's not paralyzed by dogma. That's for sure, and that's a very worthwhile thing. Absolutely. In time, Old Homestead will have an educational component. I'm certainly not paralyzed by conjecture. I do a lot of weird stuff, and I think a program like that would be good for someone like you. So take all that however you would like to. I don't mean any offense to any of those people involved otherwise. That's the honest truth of it. So hopefully I helped you out there some with that question. Let's see what else we got here. Excuse me. That one's actually a really long question. So I think we may do a separate video for this. This is about that French bourbon we talked about before. I think we'll make that a separate video itself. We're already at 18 minutes basically. So guys, thank you so much for your support. Be sure to check out oldhomesteaddc.com, thealchemistcabinet.com. Keep an eye out for that Practical Distillers and Alchemist Almanac, and get your ass out there and ride a bicycle if you can. It's worthwhile. Or find something physical you like to do. I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I'll tell you that even on the days that I don't want to do it, which is usually the days I really need to do it, no matter how hard I struggle, no matter how much of a pain in the ass it is, when I get back here and sit down on this porch, there's not been a single day yet that I've thought, man, that was a giant waste of time. Not one. Love y'all. Later.